Have you ever wondered about how to make your elevator pitch better? Well, I'm here today with Stew Segura. He is, I would consider a guy that's doing elevator pitches all the time because he is an owner of Mattress Doctor, which is a mattress company. He specializes in mattresses and furniture store, serving clients to get their best night's rest. So he is constantly in front of clients, pitching them on different products that they have. And we're going to dive into that because that's one thing that I see a lot of people struggle with. But a little bit more about Stu here before I turn it over to him. Stu has overcome severe drug addiction and turned his life around for the better, has a background in IT, consulting, and selling on Amazon professionally. Stu has a fiance, 3 wonderful children, and 2 dogs that are like family. And I'm excited to talk to Stu today. We've been trying to have this happen for a while. But Stu, tell us a little bit more about yourself, man. I know you had a little bit more, but I try to not vomit a whole bunch of stuff in the intro because sometimes they get really long and people don't like to hear about me. They want to hear from you.
Hey, Philip. Well, thanks for having me, man. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. So, man, I'm just a guy who's on the journey to become a better man and to help other men as well. I'm really focused on my business, but also something that really inspires me too is like to try to bring other people up with me. Like, take for example, like my employee. I love to pour into him. The last guy who left here, he actually calls me every now and then for like advice and stuff like that. I helped him, fix his credit, taught him a lot about sales, and I still support him to this day in what he does. And I just think that's like a really cool thing to do, empower others. I buy my employees like lunch and I give them books and things like that to read. And I let them read on the clock because I think it's really important. I know that reading has helped me a lot. I just found that it's really important to like challenge my brain with new information. It allows me to expand my thinking and to become a better man.
Man, and that's awesome. I like that you let your employees read on the clock, which actually is really smart because in your industry, there's some downtime there. Not everybody's coming in every single minute to come check out some furniture or get a mattress or anything like that. So rather than paying them to sit there and do nothing, you're paying them really to educate them. And so which helps you in the end, which I think is really smart. And so before we really dive into what we're going to talk about today, Stu, I want to ask you, what is your definition of public speaking?
I would say public speaking to me is having the ability to spread your message effectively to the point of, to where you're wanting to benefit the audience and not yourself. And for me, that's something that I have to practice all the time, because when for the average person, when they think of public speaking, they first think of fear and they tense up, they start sweating and things like that. And there's usually no way to come across effective, if you're worried about that. And I know for me personally, just practicing, and I'm getting better, every single day by just doing videos, by, like you said, doing the elevator pitches every day. But I think it's just like spreading your message and letting other people know who you are and what you're about.
I like that. And you're exactly right. And that's to me the power behind public speaking, especially when we think of the general term that most people think about is that you're on a stage, you're in front of an audience and everything. That is a powerful way because everybody's paying attention to you at that point. But as you mentioned, doing videos daily, social media is another powerful tool with public speaking. And too many people don't think of that as public speaking, or even the podcast we're on right now, which is also on YouTube. People are going to watch and hear this later. And that is a form of public speaking. It may not be the definition you would see in Webster's dictionary or anything like that, but it's still a form of public speaking because, like you said, it's about spreading information, especially around your business or the things that you just want to talk about and share with others. So I really like that definition. And so I want us to really just dive in real quick to that a little bit. We were talking offline about marketing and some operations and everything. And a lot of businesses really struggle with those operations and those processes and everything. So I'd like you to just, I know I'm keeping this super broad, but just bring a little bit of that out for the audience here of business owners to maybe something that you think would be a good tip for them to be able to learn about when it comes to operations and marketing to help them be able to move forward and spread their message of their business and grow that business.
So, Philip, I think that it's very important to constantly have some form of a message that you're sending out. And like for me, especially in my mattress business, the number one thing that I enjoy doing that helps the customer the most, because you have to think about, benefiting them. I can't be thinking about like, what am I going to sell today? What am I going to sell today? It's more about educating them. And for me, it's about sleep. So, I'm wanting to talk about REM sleep, wanting to talk about, sleeping cool, providing tips on how them to get the best night's sleep so they can sleep better and perform better for not only for their family, but for their business as well, and also for their health. A lot of people, when they go into a store, the people working there aren't really educated about the sleep systems or the mattresses. And they're just kind of like picking one kind of like off the rack, or like I call it, like on the back of the baseball card stats. And, it goes a whole lot more dive into that. And I feel like that is what has helped me a lot, is just by having mentors, by paying for education if you need to, or some of it could be just on like YouTube and reading books. But I feel like you can do the same thing in any business. You just want to become an expert in your field. But as far as your message goes, it needs to be consistent, but you don't want to get too overwhelming. Like, you don't want to post a sale every single day, especially in my industry. It just looks really bad. It looks like you're just out for money. Now, if you're posting about some new information, or like a sleep app, or like even like a sleep tracker, like I use a Garmin, something like that might be helpful, because it can also benefit them, for things like fitness. They may have already been looking online for something like that as a gift for them or for somebody else. So I just encourage you guys to think about what kind of message you want to present to your potential audience, to your future employees, and also the kind of company that you want to be, as far as like your core values. You want to portray that kind of at all times. And I also like to have a little bit of fun with it too. Like, I don't try to be too serious on that. Every now and then, like, I'll throw like a little joke or a meme or something like that, but I usually don't let that get too out of hand, because then it can get like way off topic. But yeah, that's one thing I think will help.
Okay, yeah, I like that a lot, man. Really spreading that information. I think that's something a lot of people don't think about, is trying to find complementary things to what they do. And going back to what you mentioned with the Garmin, it's not like you're sponsored by them. And if you are, or you have some kind of affiliate program, maybe you're transparent about that. I would suggest being a little transparent about it if you're really trying to sell somebody on it. But if you're just like, hey, this helps you, it's a sleep tracker, but you can do any sleep tracker. I just happen to use the Garmin kind of thing. I think that's cool. And it's a great way for people to keep you personally top of mind. So think about your business and what you can do that's a complementary business to you. So we can use another example, like real estate. Well, something that's a complementary business is a home inspector. So you can talk about, hey, make sure that you're getting a home inspection, or hey, make sure that every 6 months that you're getting your roof inspected, because I have a couple roofing friends, and I know you do too, and that's what they usually say. It's about every 6 months. So you can bring up something like that, so it keeps you top of mind, but you're also educating just slightly different about something that's in your industry, which I think is something that's really underused. So I think that's a great tip that you shared there. And so I really want to go into the other part. You kind of alluded to it, that a lot of people, it's just all about the sell, 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 sell. And with elevator pitches, I think that's where people sell the most. And so explain this process. And again, we talked offline and before actually coming on the podcast, like, what are we going to talk about? And that's what I really wanted to get into. And we talked specifically about BNI, but I've been to all sorts of networking events, different groups that weren't BNI related. So it's not just BNI or anything like that. So I don't think we're bashing one particular networking group, but all these networking groups we go to, or even the groups we're in that we're paying to be in, they also have people that when they go in for their elevator pitch, they're literally pitching. So what do you think an elevator pitch really is in the first place? Let's kind of go broad, and we're going to go in as we talk about this.
Okay, so I feel like an elevator pitch is 30 seconds or less of what you do for a living, and what you're about in your business. And for me, I feel like I like to kind of summarize it down to where it might be like 15 to 20 seconds. Like, for example, my elevator pitch is that I'm a sleep specialist and that I help people having problems that are sleeping poorly. And that's usually all I say. I used to go a lot more into detail about it, but it kind of gets a little bit confusing. And usually when I tell somebody that I'm a sleep specialist over, let's say, a mattress store owner, they're a little bit more intrigued.
Yeah.
Because if I'm just a mattress store owner, then they just assume that I have what everybody else has. And even if let's say I have the same product, I don't have the same knowledge. And that is one thing, that will help you stand out as well. And but you're right. I elevator pitch. It could be anywhere from 5 to 10 times a day, or even on the phone. Even on the phone is an elevator pitch. And it just goes with experience. And now it's something that's really important. You got to take that fear out of, like, what they're going to think, like, just kind of out of your mind. Because if you say nothing, like, let's say in an actual elevator to somebody, you've never met, like, that could be somebody that you're partners with down the road on something else, or it could be like one of your best clients. So I encourage, everybody to just kind of like throw those nerves to the side and just have like a brief, quick chat.
Nice. And I definitely want to dive into that, but let's go back real quick. So you mentioned about being a sleeping specialist, and then I'm forgetting the other part. Okay. Can you repeat your elevator pitch? I kind of want to break it down a little bit.
Okay. So I'm a sleep specialist and I help people solve their sleeping problems. Like, for example, I get a lot of people that have either back, neck, hip issues, things like that can't sleep all night. They'll end up on their couch and they'll go through these scenarios where they're buying 4 or 5 mattresses from these different companies, and it's just never the right one. And it's because they're not properly fitted. And so that's what I do to kind of elaborate just a little bit more. So I just educate them on how to select the perfect mattress and how to resolve their issues. So I'm not really selling them the mattress. I'm solving their sleep issue.
I like that. That's what I wanted to break apart. So you talk about you're a sleep specialist, which you mentioned earlier, that creates this unique proposition. They're like, oh, what is that exactly? And then you add in there, I help solve people's sleep problems, essentially. And so that as well, it's not like, oh yeah, I'm a sleep specialist, I help people find the right mattress. Okay, so you're just selling mattresses essentially. So you're actually going in, and now you've identified who you work with. So I can know right away, well, hey, I'm good. I can sleep on a rock, have no problems, no neck issues. I'm not the person that is going to work with you or going to want to talk with you. And that's fine. We can identify that together, that we wouldn't work together and I wouldn't buy a mattress from you. But hey, I have neck problems all the time. Now I'm intrigued. I want to know more about what it is that you can do to help me resolve these problems. So I think that's a really good elevator pitch, because it gets me intrigued of what a sleep specialist is. And then you identify who it is that you work with as a sleep specialist. So that way I know whether we could work together or not. Or maybe I've got an uncle that's older, that he's got a lot of back problems, neck problems. And you know what? They need to talk to Stew. So I think that's a really great way. And so I bring this out for the audience to understand more about that elevator pitch and what that actually means behind it. Because too oftentimes, like, and you were guilty of that, I've been guilty of that at the beginning, where it's just like, oh yeah, hey, this is what I do, this is who I help. Or yeah, okay, I'm a mattress store owner, I sell mattresses. Yeah, like you said, it's everybody does that. There's plenty of people that do that, but what makes you unique? And then you also use it in a way, it's like, I'm the sleep specialist, so I have that education as well, which I think is really awesome. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I another thing that I like to do as well, that that might help the audience a little bit, is like, I also have some people that I can refer out, as far as I've got some associates that are chiropractors that do like physiotherapy, as far as like dry needling and things like that, because there are some issues that I come across that aren't related to like their mattress that they might have need to, they might need to take care of, that they might have just been kind of avoiding. Cause I get a lot of people that, nobody really loves to go to the doctor.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, there's other things too, man. Like I actually have an ebook out, for how to get the best night's rest as well. And there's a lot of tips in there that have nothing to do with spending money in my store. And so I find that providing, some free value like that also helps as well. Cause they're all, it also lets them know that they're not just like a number to me, and,
Yeah.
I just want to help them in any way that I can.
I like that. And so what are maybe some things that you've seen with people doing an elevator pitch that have been really bad? I know you got a couple of stories. So you care to share any of those?
Sure. So this woman will remain nameless, but I was in a local meeting, and she gets up to do her elevator pitch, and she says, blah, 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 I'm the commercial real estate agent. I've got this house 237 on Antigua. It's 5,000 square feet commercial building, and they're asking $700,000. And it's funny because like some other people are writing this down, and then she reels off two more properties like that. And I'm thinking like, how is anybody like gonna actually do this? Everybody is writing this down. Nobody's like, because you're almost asking somebody to like go find your client for you. And that's kind of usually not the case. You know what I'm saying? I would have probably pitched it more like, hey, if you know anybody that's looking to start a business or looking to move or looking to reduce their rent or something, or looking to mitigate, their tax situation, looking to save on taxes, this is my phone number, or put them in touch with me. Every time I do a different elevator pitch, I try to change it up a little bit. I don't like to say the same thing, especially I like my local BNI. Like one week I might talk about like cooling products because right now it's like 100 degrees outside. So that's like a perfect time to talk about it. And then another one, I might talk about like you're talking about neck pillows, like, or neck pain, something like that. So I like to change it up a little bit, but not to get too detailed into it. Just like mention like, hey, just to let you know, I offer these products, and I can offer some helpful advice as well on this. And I try not to get too complicated.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I think it's just some people, and I used to do this as well. You tend to be a little bit selfish when you haven't really thought about it. And if you haven't seen, I think sometimes if people would see themselves give the pitch, they'd be like, oh, that wasn't my best. That wasn't my best.
I agree with that. And it's funny you mentioned about that. I mean, first of all, it's a ridiculous story. I can't believe somebody actually did that, because that's so specific, and that's going to change too. Like, why in the world, one, would you bring that up in these specific properties? Because it's not like you're always going to be doing those properties unless it happens to be your own rental property, perhaps, especially if it's like an Airbnb or something. I don't know. It's kind of crazy, but I did have somebody that I know here locally. They do point of sale stuff, and they're a merchant advisor, or whatever you want to call them, and everything. And they actually were going to these meetings, and they were kind of going down the list because they were trying to get in touch with business owners. So they kind of would do one at a time. And one time, and they've had this client, I think, for like 3 or 4 years now. But they went to a meeting. They're like, hey, who knows such and such owner of this restaurant? And somebody's like, oh, I know him. And they were able to connect, but he was very specific. So he didn't, it's specific, but in a little bit different way. So it's kind of cool how he was able to do that. But sometimes that doesn't work. So it just kind of depends, but definitely you got to pick and choose what you're going to be specific about. Like this guy was trying to, hey, this is who I'm looking for. This is it. But it's part of what he's trying to do for prospecting, versus this was just like, hey, here's a random property. Here's some details on it. Yeah. Like, you help me find this person. He was just like, hey, does anybody have a connection? That's all I need. I can do the work from there. So definitely don't use a elevator pitch or any kind of networking event to try and help people do your business for sure. And then the other part, you mentioned about how you talk about a different product every time. I think that's another thing that too many of us as business owners do, where we have either multiple businesses, or we have multiple products or multiple services, and we want to talk about them all. nobody can remember the 500 products and services that you have, especially if you try and spit them out in 30 seconds. So talk about one, maybe two, if it's very closely related to it in that elevator pitch. But I really would suggest just one, because then people can remember that and it helps them identify, hey, is this somebody I want to work with, or is this somebody that I can refer them to? But if you name off 5 different products and services that you do, they can't identify with what you do at all. And then you're not going to get any business, because at the end of the day, while you shouldn't pitch in your elevator pitch, you still need to talk about what it is that you do, and making it simple for the person listening or the people listening helps them be able to figure out how they can help you, because that's the point of networking.
No, definitely. Because most people, like if you asked me what I ate for breakfast yesterday, I'd have to sit for a second and think about it. So if you tell me 5 different things, it's going to be hard for even me to remember one of them.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just focus on one and elaborate a little more on it, like I think people can retain that just a little bit better.
Yeah, exactly. So let's move into your store now. So we've been kind of talking about at networking events and everything, how we need to do with that. But let's move back into your store. You mentioned this a little bit, but let's imagine like a potential customer comes into the store. They're obviously looking for something, so they're kind of a warm lead. They're not that cold lead. In your situation, I guess you're lucky with that, because you get people that are interested or at least shopping around. They may still be cold, but they come in to your store. How do you approach them, and what does this process look like? Because I can see where you could just vomit out every single product you have, which wouldn't work. But how do you go about doing that?
So the first thing I like to do is just greet them. And I usually try to do it like a little bit from a distance. Like I don't want to be like in their space, but I'm just like, hey, how are you doing today? My name is Stew. I'm the owner here. And they'll usually, like say their name. And more often than not, they'll either tell me why they're here, or if not, I'll just start asking like a few different questions, like, what brings you in today? And if I'm lucky, they'll just start talking and I'll just sit there and listen. Cause like my favorite ones are like, this mattress is killing me. It's way too old. I should have replaced this 3 years ago. And I just kind of like let them talk. And then after I ask them, like a few different questions, then I'll kind of walk them over to like what I would like to call one of my middle ground mattresses. So like, let's say I know that they're looking for something that is like a firm. I'll throw them on one that's really popular. And then I'll kind of like, if they don't like it, we'll move one way. If they love it, we can possibly stay on that one or move another way. Because you're right. If I put them on 30 something different mattresses, it's going to get very, very confusing. So I need to remember to not vomit out everything that I'm having on sale, because selecting the proper product usually doesn't matter about the price. Now, usually when they find the right one, I might have like 2 or 3 that can fit in, to like different budgets. But for the most part, I usually have people lay on maybe like 4 to 5 different models. And typically that's usually it once we find the right one. Because it can get kind of overwhelming, and I'm not there to confuse anybody. I'm there to educate. And I think somebody mentioned the other day, like almost be like a buyer's assistant. And I've never used that word, but I thought that was like a cool phrase. And so like in a way, I feel like even though I'm in sales, I feel like I'm more of like an expert or an educator when it comes to that. Because in the end, the customer is actually, has to be the one to make the decision. I'm just kind of providing all of the options and different ways to get that done. And so that's kind of how I like to approach things. And I also like to, build a little bit of rapport. I like to crack jokes. I like to, if they got kids, I'm high-fiving the kids, like, what's up, y'all? If y'all want to go lay on the couch or whatever, I got a TV in the showroom in case we got rowdy kids I can put on YouTube or whatever. So yeah, I just like, I love kids, and I just find that like, if you're somebody that they can relate to and they like, they'll usually, as long as, you're not like full of it, they'll usually they'll usually do business with you if if it matches up with your information and your confidence and your knowledge. That's just kind of how I like to approach things.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, definitely not pushy, not salesy, as we think of, especially the notorious car salesman, that used car salesman kind of thing. Or hey, we're gonna
Yes.
get you in here. Oh, let's try this one out. Try this one out. Like, yeah, you go in, you ask those questions if they're not already telling you what it is, and those are the best people to talk to and work with and help them with their problem to create a solution for them, because they're telling you everything that's going on. You're not having to interrogate them almost, because I've had some of those people that I've had to have those sales conversations with, and oh man, it is a nightmare, because you don't want to keep asking question after question after question. But man, that's tough, and maybe we'll have to get into that in a second. But I like that you work on building rapport. You have the different ways. Yeah, if you got the kids, like, hey, let's get you over here to the couch. There's a TV. Let you have fun. That way, the parents get a little bit of relief. They can go focus on finding a bed, because let's face it, it's really not fun for anybody, because you're gonna go spend a good amount of money. You got to go awkwardly lay on a couple of beds, and then you're like, crap, I hope my shoes aren't dirty. I know they've got this thing here, but I still might get it dirty. Or am I going to have to hop up here? Am I going to need a step stool? Like, there's all these things that make it a little awkward for the consumer. But I like that you talk with them and you kind of bring them to a certain area that, and based on the questions that you've asked them or what they've told you, to be able to help them out, which is such an important thing, that we really need to listen. We need to build that rapport, that know, like, and trust, and then listen, because too often we don't listen. And going back to elevator pitches a little bit, we don't listen to somebody's elevator pitch either. And that's such an important thing to do, whether it be sales, whether it be a networking event, whether it be an elevator pitch. If you don't listen and you're just waiting to say your part, people can tell that too. And so if you went into this conversation with this customer that came in and you just were waiting to be able to sell them or tell them how great your stuff is or what new sale you got going on, they're not going to listen. They're going to be like, all right, that's cool. Well, let us think about it. We'll get back to you. I'm sure you've had that happen.
We have a few other stores that we want to go look at. No, yeah. I've done that. I've made that mistake before. And it just doesn't work. Like, it just doesn't work. You know, you have, like they say, listen twice as much as you talk. I think Ryan Stewman in one of his books says, like, the quiet salesman that only speaks, when he has to speak, is usually the one that does the best. At times it is a challenge, but it works. It works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how do you, let's go a little bit more into this, like, elevator pitch, because there's times where you're talking about one product and you got to switch to another product, and that's tough. So how do you make that transition from one product to the next?
So usually I'll make the transition. Usually for me, so I've got different brands in the store, and there's a lot of different brands that I carry, that the products feel like wildly different, even if, like, let's say they're the same firmness or made of very similar materials. And so I will just talk about the benefits of, let's say, like the next model. And I usually talk about more about the brand. Then we try, like, I've got one brand in particular called Puffy. And I'll usually mention that, like, they'll come with 101 night sleep trial. They do free shipping to your doorstep. They come with a free sleep bundle. And it also has a lifetime warranty. And that's one of the few brands that does that. It doesn't matter which model you buy. You've got your soft, your medium, and your firm. And I just talk, like, a little bit in detail about each one. Mm-hmm. And I'll let the customer let me know what they think about each one. And typically when somebody lays on a product like mine, almost immediately, especially if you hate it, I don't like this. And so that's just kind of how I go from one to the other. And if it's something that I know that they're not going to like I'll act kind of almost like that model's not even there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I like that you kind of talk about each one of them a little briefly, and then as they start to say, "Oh, I don't like that one," you just all right, we're not talking about it anymore. It doesn't exist. And we move on to the next one, or they really like one. You just go in talking about that, which goes back to the listening, which we mentioned earlier. You're listening to what they want, and you're not going in there trying to look for the one that's going to give you the biggest commission or the one that costs the most. I can sell that so my sales numbers can be up. And obviously you're the owner, so then it's more money in your pocket at the end of the day too. But for our people that are doing sales, that's something to think about. It's not about selling the biggest and the most expensive. It's about selling the best product for that customer. And it could be the cheapest thing in the showroom or in the lot or wherever that is and everything. But it's what the customer wanted. They're going to be happy, and that's going to create more sales. So, well, Stu, man, this has been awesome. I've enjoyed kind of talking about elevator pitches and really kind of going into that sales process as well, kind of diving through and navigating what it looks like to have that conversation, be kind of customer centric, focusing on the customer and being simplistic at the end of the day. But I want to get to our last question that I like to ask every guest. And that is, if you only had one message that you could share for the rest of your life, what would that message be?
If I only had one message, it would be that you're capable of doing anything in life that you want. You just have to be willing to sacrifice for it and to work for it. I see myself and others as kind of like a work of art that it's never finished. And so I think that the best version of everybody is somebody who's never stopped learning and never stopped growing. And I believe that in order to live your best life and to be fulfilled, that's kind of like a stance that you have to live. Like you can't go 1 year and read 10 books and then go the next 10 years of your life and just kind of watch Netflix all the time. Like, I don't think you'll be fulfilled even if you have money. So I think that stuff like that is very, very important for everybody to know and to lead a fulfilled life. And that's something I believe is that I want to leave behind in my legacy. And my legacy is not going to be financial. It's going to be about the drive that I have and the giving back to others and wanting to leave behind, like not only like a better America, but just like a better life for my family. And it's going to come with like values and just a better way of living, not to mention like, having a better attitude just about every situation and just learning to be better every single day. And that's kind of what I want to leave behind. That's what I hope gets talked about, when I pass one day.
Hi, man. And I think you're living that out right now. I see it from the posts that you do on social media, the interactions, the conversations that we have. I definitely see that already. So it's definitely a legacy that you're already working on building. So just keep it up, man. You're on the right path for that, for sure.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Of course. Well, Stu, man, again, I appreciate you coming on, sharing your value here. If people want to follow you, get to know you more, and first of all, you tell us where you're located at. I forgot to mention that. So you've been talking about mattresses. I know you can do it online as well, but if people do want to come in person to your store, where are you located at? And then if not in person, where can they find you at online?
Okay, so my store is located in Youngsville, Louisiana, which is right outside of Lafayette, Louisiana. Lafayette's kind of like the bigger city. Youngsville is kind of like a little outskirt town right next to it. But you can find me either at my Facebook store, which is facebook.com/Mattress Doctor Lafayette, or I encourage you to actually follow me or add me as a friend on social media, and it's facebook.com/Stew Segura. And I'll be sharing a bunch of, different things like we talked about on this podcast, like not only, like some business tips, sleep tips, but also, like some encouraging posts as well. But yeah, that's how they can find me.
Awesome. Well, Stu, thanks again for coming on. I appreciate it.
No, I'm really glad you have me, man. I appreciate it. I love this show.